The mind is constantly pulled in different directions. Every moment, it is bombarded with distractions, notifications, obligations, endless choices demanding attention. In a world designed to fragment focus, the ability to direct one's energy toward meaningful goals is no longer just a skill, it is a necessity. Those who master focus do not do so by accident. They do it by design, by understanding what truly matters and cutting out everything that does not. Clarity is the foundation of focus. Without it, the mind drifts, reacting rather than directing, moving without purpose. Yet, achieving clarity is not as simple as removing distractions. True focus is not about forcing the mind into concentration. It is about training it to filter what deserves attention from what does not. It is about eliminating not just digital noise, but mental clutter, unnecessary commitments, and the subtle influences that pull one away from what is truly important. Throughout history, the greatest thinkers, strategists, and creators all shared one thing in common. They understood how to focus. They knew that success does not come from scattered effort, but from disciplined attention. Whether in philosophy, science, or art, those who changed the world were those who mastered the ability to tune out distractions and channel their energy toward what mattered most. The ability to focus is not an inherent trait. It is a cultivated practice. It requires deliberate choices, strategic elimination of the unnecessary, and a commitment to deep, intentional work. The question is not whether distractions exist. They always will. The question is whether one can rise above them, choosing to direct their mind rather than allowing the world to direct it for them. Mastering focus is mastering life. And those who learn to control their attention ultimately control their future. Understand what focus really means for you. Focus is not just the absence of distraction, it is the presence of clarity. Many assume that focus simply means working without interruption, but true focus is about knowing exactly where to direct one's energy. Without this understanding, effort is wasted. A person can be free from distractions, yet still be unproductive if their attention is scattered across tasks that do not align with their deeper purpose. Focus, at its core, is not just about concentration. It is about intentionality, choosing where to invest time and mental energy in a way that creates meaningful progress. Socrates believed that the unexamined life is not worth living. He saw that without self-awareness, people drift from one task to another, reacting rather than acting with purpose. He urged individuals to question what truly matters to them, to reflect on their values, and to align their actions accordingly. Without this inner clarity, even the most disciplined mind can be led astray by external demands. Focus begins with knowing what is worthy of attention and what is merely a distraction disguised as productivity. Similarly, Leonardo da Vinci, a master of both art and science, understood that focus was not about rigidly limiting interests, but about pursuing them with depth. He did not merely explore many subjects, he engaged with them fully, immersing himself in one pursuit at a time before shifting with purpose. His notebooks reveal a mind that was not fragmented, but deeply present in each moment of study and creation. His ability to channel focus into both art and invention was not accidental. It was the result of structured curiosity, giving full attention to one thing at a time. This principle applies to modern life more than ever. Many people mistake busyness for focus, believing that filling their schedules with endless tasks equates to progress. Yet, without clear direction, effort can become an endless loop of movement without real achievement. A person may spend hours responding to emails, checking notifications, or working on tasks that seem urgent, but contribute little to long-term goals. Without defining what focus truly means in their life, they become consumed by distractions masquerading as responsibilities. Socrates saw that reflection is the foundation of purpose. Leonardo da Vinci demonstrated that true focus is not about doing less, but about engaging fully in what matters most. Their lesson is simple. Before one can focus, one must define what is worth focusing on. Without this clarity, even the most disciplined effort can lead nowhere. But with it, every action, every moment of attention becomes a step towards something meaningful. Focus is not just about eliminating distractions, it is about ensuring that what remains is truly deserving of one's time. Recognize and eliminate all forms of noise. Distractions are not just the things that beep, flash, or demand immediate attention. The real enemies of focus are often invisible, operating in the background, quietly consuming mental energy without being noticed. The modern world is filled with digital noise, constant notifications, endless scrolling, algorithm-driven content designed to hijack attention. But the most dangerous distractions go beyond technology. They exist in unnecessary obligations, toxic relationships, negative environments, and even the mental clutter of doubt, comparison, and indecision. If focus is a flame, then noise is the wind, relentless, subtle, and capable of extinguishing progress before it even begins. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, believed that much of human suffering is self-inflicted, not because of what happens to a person, but because of what they choose to give their attention to. He warned that the mind, if left unguarded, will latch onto trivialities, spending energy on what is beyond control rather than what truly matters. He saw that people often fill their time with distractions disguised as responsibilities, conversations that lead nowhere, and pursuits that offer the illusion of importance while stealing time from deeper, more meaningful efforts. His advice was simple but profound. Focus only on what is within one's control and eliminate everything that distracts from it. Noise is not just external, it also exists within the mind. The endless internal dialogue, the over-analysis, the fear of missing out, the constant second-guessing prevents deep engagement with any meaningful task. This kind of mental noise can be just as destructive as external distractions. A person may sit down to work, physically present, but mentally scattered, their mind bouncing between past regrets, future anxieties, and irrelevant concerns. Without awareness, even a distraction-free environment cannot guarantee focus if the mind itself is filled with noise. Seneca, another Stoic thinker, recognized that one's environment shapes one's thoughts. He believed that true clarity comes not just from adding more to life, but from removing what no longer serves. He advised distancing oneself from negative influences, whether they be toxic relationships, energy-draining conversations, or environments that foster distraction. Just as a sculptor removes excess stone to reveal a masterpiece, a person must eliminate unnecessary obligations, shallow pursuits, and influences that do not align with their deeper goals. True focus requires curation. It is not just about what one does, but about what one refuses to engage with. This principle applies universally. A person seeking focus may think their primary challenge is digital distractions, but often the real culprits are less obvious. It may be the tendency to say yes to everything, spreading themselves too thin across commitments that offer little value. It may be engaging in conversations that drain energy without purpose. It may be consuming content that breeds comparison and doubt, rather than insight and motivation. These forms of noise are subtle, but over time, they fragment attention and weaken the ability to concentrate deeply. In practice, eliminating noise requires both awareness and action. The first step is identification, recognizing the habits, relationships, and environments that act as sources of distraction. This means questioning routines. What activities add value and which simply consume time without return? Which conversations energize and which leave one feeling drained? Which digital habits serve a purpose and which exist purely out of reflex? The second step is deliberate removal. This does not mean avoiding responsibilities, but rather restructuring life to ensure that time and energy are directed toward what truly matters. It means setting boundaries, saying no without guilt, and designing an environment that nurtures deep focus rather than disrupts it. Epictetus saw that attention is a form of power. What one gives energy to grows stronger. Seneca understood that clarity is not achieved by adding more, but by subtracting the unnecessary. Their lesson is clear. Distractions are not just what appear on a screen. They exist in thoughts, relationships, and daily routines. To master focus, one must learn to remove not only digital interruptions, but all forms of mental and environmental clutter. When noise is cut away, what remains is a mind capable of deep, uninterrupted engagement with what truly matters. Set clear, measurable goals. Focus without direction is wasted effort. Many people struggle with maintaining attention, not because they lack discipline, but because they lack clarity. Without a defined target, the mind drifts, reacting to whatever feels urgent rather than what is truly important. Setting clear, measurable goals is the foundation of effective focus. It provides a destination, a reason to filter distractions, and a way to measure progress. Without it, even the most determined effort can lead nowhere. Aristotle understood the power of intentionality. He believed that every action should serve a greater purpose, arguing that true fulfillment comes from aligning daily efforts with a long-term vision. To him, vague aspirations were meaningless. Excellence was not an accident, but a series of deliberate, well-directed choices. He emphasized the importance of defining goals with precision, knowing not just what one wants, but how to achieve it. Without specificity, goals remain ideas rather than realities. This principle was echoed centuries later by Peter Drucker, the father of modern management, who introduced the concept of SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. He recognized that vague ambitions, such as becoming successful or improving focus, lack the structure needed for execution. Instead, he advocated breaking down aspirations into clear, actionable steps. What exactly needs to be done? By when? How will success be measured? A goal that is not measurable cannot be tracked, and what cannot be tracked is rarely achieved. In practice, setting clear goals requires both vision and discipline. A person who wants to become healthier will struggle if their goal is undefined. But a person who commits to exercising for 30 minutes, 5 times a week, has a concrete target that allows for progress tracking. A writer who wants to finish a book may feel overwhelmed, but if they decide to write 500 words every morning before checking their phone, they create a structure that makes success inevitable. The mind resists vague ambition, but responds well to clear direction. However, setting goals is not just about creating structure. It is also about alignment. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist behind the concept of flow, found that people experience deep focus and fulfillment when their goals challenge them without overwhelming them. If a goal is too easy, it does not engage the mind. If it is too difficult, it creates resistance. The key is to set objectives that stretch one's abilities just enough to inspire growth while remaining within reach. A student aiming for mastery should not seek perfection overnight, but should set progressive targets, improving one skill at a time rather than attempting to master everything at once. This principle applies in every field. A business that does not set clear quarterly objectives drifts aimlessly, reacting rather than strategizing. An athlete without structured training goals struggles to track improvement. A person who seeks personal growth but does not define their milestones risks feeling lost, unable to measure progress. The greatest achievers, whether philosophers, scientists, or artists, did not simply work hard. They worked with precision, knowing exactly what they were working toward. Aristotle taught that purpose gives meaning to action. Drucker demonstrated that measurable goals turn ambition into reality. Csikszentmihalyi revealed that the right level of challenge sustains focus. Their lesson is clear. Success is not just about working harder, it is about working with intention. To focus deeply, one must first define what is worth focusing on. Vague dreams lead to vague results, but clear, structured goals turn effort into achievement. When direction is precise, distractions become irrelevant, and every action moves one step closer to fulfillment. Master the art of ruthless prioritization. Not everything deserves attention. The modern world pushes the idea that productivity is about doing more, filling every hour with tasks, maximizing output, constantly striving to accomplish as much as possible. But real progress does not come from endless busyness, it comes from precision. Those who achieve the most do not scatter their efforts across countless priorities. They refine, they eliminate, they focus only on what truly matters and allow everything else to fade into the background. Confucius understood this long before the concept of modern productivity existed. He believed that wisdom was not about knowing everything, but about choosing carefully where to direct one's energy. A person who tries to master too many disciplines at once spreads themselves too thin, gaining surface-level knowledge, but no depth. A person who tries to engage in every opportunity finds themselves exhausted, accomplishing little of real significance. To Confucius, the mark of a wise individual was not their ability to take on more, but their ability to let go of the unnecessary and commit fully to what aligned with their purpose. This principle remains just as relevant today. Many people struggle not because they lack focus, but because they focus on the wrong things. A person may spend hours responding to emails, but make no real progress on meaningful work. Another may feel overwhelmed by obligations, never realizing that many of them do not contribute to their goals. Without a system for prioritization, even the most disciplined person can find themselves lost in low-value tasks, while the truly important work remains undone. Dwight D. Eisenhower, the former US president and military strategist, recognized this problem and developed what is now known as the Eisenhower Matrix, a method for categorizing tasks based on urgency and importance. He divided tasks into 4 categories. 1. Urgent and important. Tasks that require immediate attention, such as critical deadlines or emergencies. 2. Important but not urgent. Long-term goals and meaningful projects that require planning but often get neglected. 3. Urgent but not important. Distractions disguised as responsibilities, such as unnecessary meetings or minor interruptions. 4. Neither urgent nor important, tasks that add no real value and should be eliminated. The mistake many people make is focusing too much on urgency rather than importance. They spend their days reacting to emails, notifications, and last-minute requests, mistaking constant activity for productivity. Meanwhile, the deep, meaningful work, the kind that drives real success, gets postponed in favor of short-term obligations. Those who master prioritization learn to shift their focus toward what is important rather than what is merely urgent. The same principle appears in the 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle. This rule states that 80% of results come from 20% of efforts. In business, a small fraction of customers generate most revenue. In personal development, a few key habits lead to the greatest transformation. In learning, focusing deeply on a few essential concepts produces far more understanding than passively absorbing large amounts of information. The most effective people do not try to do everything. They identify the 20% of tasks that drive the most impact and devote their energy to those. This understanding separates those who make real progress from those who remain stuck in endless motion. A writer who spends months fine-tuning minor details without ever finishing their work is not productive. A business owner who perfects a website while neglecting the actual product is not prioritizing wisely. A student who obsessively organizes notes but doesn't engage in deep study is mistaking preparation for action. The real challenge is not just in working hard, but in working on the right things. Confucius saw that a scattered mind leads to shallow effort. Eisenhower understood that not all urgent tasks are important. The Pareto principle revealed that most results come from a small number of high-impact actions. Their lesson is clear. Success is not about doing more. It is about doing what matters most with full attention. Ruthless prioritization is not a skill reserved for the highly disciplined. It is a mindset, a commitment to filtering out the noise, letting go of the unimportant, and focusing entirely on the few things that truly move life forward. Optimize your environment for deep work. Focus does not exist in isolation. The mind does not operate in a vacuum, free from influence. It is shaped, guided, and often disrupted by the environment it inhabits. Many people struggle to concentrate not because they lack discipline, but because their surroundings are designed for distraction. A cluttered desk, an unorganized schedule, a phone that constantly buzzes. Each of these fragments attention, pulling the mind away from deep work before it even begins. Those who master focus do not rely on willpower alone. They shape their environment intentionally, removing obstacles and crafting a space that naturally fosters deep, uninterrupted concentration. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, understood this principle well. He wrote extensively about the importance of controlling one's surroundings, not just physically, but mentally. He believed that external chaos breeds internal chaos, that a person surrounded by disorder and distraction will find it nearly impossible to maintain clarity. His own environment reflected this philosophy. Despite being at the center of an empire, he structured his life to allow for reflection and deep thought. He knew that focus was not just about the mind, it was about the space that supports it. In modern psychology, this idea is reinforced by environmental design, the principle that small changes in surroundings can dramatically alter behavior. James Clear, in Atomic Habits, explains that the easiest way to change behavior is to change the environment, not by relying on motivation, but by designing spaces that make focus the default state. If a phone is within reach, distractions are inevitable. If work materials are scattered, deep engagement becomes difficult. But when an environment is optimized for focus, when unnecessary distractions are removed, when cues for deep work are built into daily life, concentration happens naturally, without force. The first step in optimizing an environment for deep work is eliminating clutter. Studies in cognitive psychology show that a cluttered space leads to a cluttered mind. Physical distractions, even if they seem minor, consume mental energy. A desk filled with unnecessary items, a workspace surrounded by noise, or a digital setup cluttered with notifications all create small but constant interruptions. Removing visual distractions, simplifying workspaces, and ensuring that tools for focus are easily accessible can significantly enhance the ability to engage deeply. Beyond physical space, digital clutter is one of the greatest obstacles to focus in the modern world. Social media, emails, and notifications create an environment where attention is constantly fragmented. A person may sit down to work, but if their phone is nearby, if their inbox is open, if distractions are one click away, deep focus remains out of reach. The solution is not just discipline, but deliberate design, turning off notifications, setting up focus modes, using website blockers, and creating designated time for deep work away from digital interruptions. Time itself is also part of the environment. Cal Newport in Deep Work emphasizes that focus is not just about eliminating distractions, but about creating dedicated, uninterrupted blocks of time where the mind can fully engage. Multitasking is an illusion. Each time a person switches between tasks, their brain loses efficiency. True, deep work requires structuring the day so that concentration is not constantly interrupted. This means setting boundaries, blocking off periods for focused effort, ensuring that others respect these time blocks, and treating deep work with the same importance as any external commitment. Even sensory factors, lighting, sound, and movement, play a role in focus. Research shows that natural light enhances cognitive function. That background noise can either help or hinder concentration depending on its consistency, and that periodic movement improves mental stamina. Those who understand this use their environment strategically. They work in well-lit spaces, use noise-cancelling headphones if needed, and incorporate short walks or stretches to maintain mental sharpness. Marcus Aurelius saw that a chaotic environment leads to a chaotic mind. James Clear demonstrated that behavior follows environmental design. Cal Newport proved that deep focus requires structured time and space. Their lesson is clear. Focus is not just about mental effort. It is about creating an environment where deep work becomes inevitable. Those who shape their surroundings with intention do not fight for focus. They allow it to happen naturally. The mind flourishes not in resistance to distraction, but in a space where clarity is the default state. Eliminate digital addictions and reclaim your time. The modern world is built for distraction. Every notification, every algorithm, every endlessly scrolling feed is designed not to inform, but to capture and hold attention. The mind, once trained for deep thought and sustained focus, now struggles against an environment engineered to fragment it. The cost is not just wasted time, it is the erosion of one's ability to engage in meaningful work, to think deeply, to remain present. Those who master focus do not merely resist digital distractions. They actively reshape their relationship with technology, using it as a tool rather than allowing it to dictate their time and attention. Blaise Pascal, the 17th century philosopher and mathematician, observed that much of human suffering comes from an inability to sit alone in a quiet room. Long before smartphones, he saw that people struggled with stillness, always seeking external stimulation to avoid confronting their own thoughts. His insight is even more relevant today. The endless stream of digital distractions has created a world where stillness is rare, where moments of quiet thought are interrupted by the next vibration, the next update, the next dopamine hit of novelty. The mind, constantly stimulated, forgets how to function without input. The first step in eliminating digital addiction is understanding its psychological grip. Neuroscience reveals that social media, emails, and notifications hijack the brain's reward system. Each interaction releases a small amount of dopamine, reinforcing the habit, making distraction feel natural. Over time, the ability to focus weakens, not because of a lack of discipline, but because the brain has been conditioned to seek constant stimulation. The key to breaking this cycle is not simply self-control, but designing a digital environment that supports focus rather than undermines it. One of the most effective strategies is setting intentional boundaries with technology. Instead of relying on willpower alone, those who reclaim their focus create tech-free zones and times, specific periods where phones, emails, and notifications are removed from reach. Many of history's greatest thinkers structured their day around periods of deep, uninterrupted work. Nikola Tesla, for example, would immerse himself in solitary reflection, avoiding distractions entirely when working on complex problems. Today, this practice translates into scheduled time blocks where devices are set aside, allowing the mind to engage fully without interruption. Equally important is reducing passive consumption of digital content. Scrolling endlessly, checking updates reflexively, and engaging in constant online debates may feel productive, but they often leave the mind exhausted without having accomplished anything of value. A practical solution is adopting the principle of intentional consumption, choosing in advance what to engage with, setting limits on screen time, and ensuring that digital interactions serve a clear purpose rather than becoming mindless habits. Another approach is replacing digital stimulation with analog habits. Many of the world's most focused individuals, writers, scientists, leaders, have recognized the value of time spent away from screens. Leonardo da Vinci sketched and wrote constantly, refining his thoughts through physical engagement with ideas. Modern research supports this. Studies show that writing by hand enhances cognitive processing, that reading physical books improves retention, and that time spent in nature restores attention span. By incorporating more non-digital activities, the brain gradually rewires itself, recovering its ability to sustain focus. Finally, reclaiming focus requires a fundamental shift in how technology is viewed. Instead of allowing devices to dictate behavior, the most effective individuals use technology with intention. This means disabling non-essential notifications, scheduling email responses rather than reacting instantly, and curating digital consumption to eliminate low-value distractions. It means remembering that technology is a tool, not a master. Pascal saw that distraction is not just an external force, but an internal habit. Neuroscience confirms that digital addiction reshapes the brain, weakening focus over time. Tesla's immersion in deep work reminds us that true breakthroughs come not from constant connectivity, but from uninterrupted thought. Their lesson is clear. Regaining focus is not about rejecting technology, it is about mastering its use. Those who reclaim their time do not abandon the digital world. They learn to navigate it with discipline, ensuring that every interaction is a choice rather than a compulsion. In a world designed for distraction, The ability to be fully present is not just an advantage, it is a necessity. Train your brain to work in focused blocks. The human brain is not designed for endless concentration. It was never meant to function like a machine, maintaining deep focus for hours without pause. Yet, in an age of constant demands and distractions, many try to force themselves into prolonged states of productivity, only to find their attention slipping, their energy draining, and their work suffering. The key to sustained focus is not sheer willpower. It is understanding the brain's natural rhythms and working with them rather than against them. Those who master focus do not just sit down and hope for productivity. They train their minds to work in structured focus blocks, ensuring that each session of effort is maximized. This principle was well understood by thinkers throughout history. Leonardo da Vinci, despite his genius, did not work endlessly. He alternated between deep concentration and deliberate rest, allowing his mind to refresh. Similarly, great mathematicians and writers often worked in structured bursts, immersing themselves in focus and then stepping away before fatigue set in. Modern neuroscience confirms what these figures intuitively practiced. The brain works best in cycles of deep work followed by recovery. One of the most effective ways to train the brain for focus is through the Pomodoro technique, developed by Francesco Cirillo in the late 1980s. This method involves breaking work into 25-minute focused intervals, followed by a 5-minute break. After 4 cycles, a longer break of 15 to 30 minutes is taken. This structure prevents burnout, maintains mental sharpness, and trains the brain to associate deep work with a clear beginning and end, making focus feel more natural over time. However, while Pomodoro is effective for many, some tasks require longer periods of uninterrupted focus. This is where ultradian rhythms, the body's natural energy cycles, become crucial. Research shows that the brain operates in 90-minute waves of peak concentration, after which performance declines. This is why many top performers, from athletes to scientists, structure their work into 90-minute deep work sessions, followed by deliberate rest. These focused blocks allow for immersion without mental exhaustion, ensuring that each work period is as productive as possible. The challenge for most people is not just maintaining focus, but resisting the urge to multitask. Studies have repeatedly shown that multitasking reduces efficiency, increases mistakes, and drains mental resources. The brain does not truly do multiple tasks at once. It rapidly switches between them, creating cognitive fatigue. Training the mind to work in blocks means eliminating interruptions during those sessions, turning off notifications, setting clear boundaries, and committing fully to a single task. This single-tasking approach not only improves efficiency, but also strengthens the brain's ability to sustain attention over time. Beyond structuring time, environmental cues play a vital role in reinforcing deep work habits. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist behind flow state research, found that individuals who engage in deep, immersive work often have specific rituals and environments that signal to the brain that it is time to focus. This can be as simple as using the same workspace each time, listening to instrumental music, or having a pre-work routine that conditions the mind for concentration. By consistently associating certain behaviors with deep focus, the brain learns to enter that state more quickly. Another overlooked aspect of training the brain for focus is strategic recovery. Just as muscles need rest to grow stronger, the brain requires moments of disengagement to function at its best. Many high achievers, from writers to entrepreneurs, integrate short walks, meditation, or even power naps between work sessions, not as a form of laziness, but as a method to sustain peak performance. Research shows that even brief mental breaks enhance problem-solving abilities, creativity, and long-term focus. Leonardo da Vinci's structured creativity, Cirillo's Pomodoro method, and Csikszentmihalyi's flow state research all point to the same truth. Deep focus is not about forcing endless productivity. It is about working in alignment with how the brain naturally operates. Those who train their minds to work in focused blocks, eliminate multitasking, and integrate recovery do not just improve their efficiency, they develop a sustainable system for lifelong concentration. In a world where attention is fragmented, the ability to work with precision in structured cycles is one of the most powerful skills a person can cultivate. Overcome mental resistance and self-doubt. The greatest obstacle to focus is not always external, it is internal. While distractions like social media, notifications, and environmental noise are obvious, the deeper challenge lies in the mind's own resistance. Procrastination, perfectionism, fear of failure, these are not just bad habits. They are mental barriers that quietly erode focus, making even the simplest tasks feel overwhelming. The mind, left unchecked, creates its own distractions, offering excuses, amplifying doubts, and convincing itself that hard things can wait. But those who master focus do not just eliminate external noise. They learn to retrain their inner dialogue, turning hesitation into action. Lao Tzu, the ancient Chinese philosopher, believed that the hardest step is always the first one. He observed that the mind resists change, preferring comfort over challenge, familiarity over effort. This is why the beginning of any task feels difficult, not because the task itself is impossible, but because the mind fights against momentum. His wisdom remains relevant today. The brain, driven by its preference for ease, often disguises resistance as rational thought. I'll start when I feel ready. Maybe I need to plan more before taking action. What if I fail? But readiness is a myth. Action must come first, and confidence follows. One of the most effective ways to break through mental resistance is the 5-minute rule, a concept backed by behavioral psychology. When faced with a task that feels overwhelming, commit to working on it for just 5 minutes. This bypasses the brain's instinct to avoid effort because the commitment feels too small to resist. However, once started, the mind naturally continues beyond those 5 minutes as momentum overcomes hesitation. This technique is used by athletes, writers, and high performers to defeat procrastination, not by forcing motivation, but by tricking the mind into action. Another major barrier to focus is perfectionism, the fear of starting because the outcome might not be flawless. This mindset creates endless hesitation, turning simple tasks into impossible ones. Michelangelo, one of the greatest artists of the Renaissance, understood this well. His works, including the Sistine Chapel, were not born from a pursuit of perfection, but from a relentless process of refinement. He did not wait for perfect conditions or flawless execution. He began, adjusted, and improved along the way. The same applies to any meaningful work. Focus is not about getting everything right immediately. It is about starting, refining, and allowing progress to unfold. Self-doubt, another silent killer of focus, convinces the mind that effort will not lead to success. William James, the father of modern psychology, studied the power of belief and found that action is what shapes confidence, not the other way around. He observed that people often wait to feel capable before taking action, But in reality, capability is built through action itself. A person who doubts their ability to write does not become confident by thinking about writing. They become confident by writing. A person who fears public speaking does not overcome it by waiting for courage. They overcome it by speaking again and again until fear is replaced with familiarity. To overcome these mental barriers, one must reframe the way they view difficulty. Instead of seeing resistance as a sign to stop, it must be seen as a natural part of progress. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, believed that obstacles were not meant to halt progress, but to shape it. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This philosophy teaches that the very challenges that cause hesitation are the ones that create growth. Resistance is not a reason to stop. It is proof that something valuable lies ahead. Practical strategies to overcome mental resistance include visualizing the outcome rather than the struggle, focusing on the sense of completion rather than the difficulty of starting. Another approach is changing the language of self-talk, replacing "I have to do this" with "I get to do this," shifting from obligation to opportunity. And finally, embracing the idea that small, imperfect steps lead to mastery, understanding that every great achievement begins with an uncertain first move. Lao Tzu understood that the mind resists beginnings. Michelangelo proved that perfection is an illusion. William James demonstrated that confidence is built through action. Marcus Aurelius taught that obstacles are pathways to growth. Their lesson is clear. Mental resistance is not a signal to stop. It is an invitation to push forward. Focus is not about waiting for the right mindset. It is about creating it through action. Those who learn to move despite hesitation, to start despite doubt, and to embrace imperfection as part of the process, do not just overcome resistance, they transform it into fuel for progress. Use rest and reflection as tools for productivity. The modern world glorifies relentless work. Hustle culture promotes the idea that success comes from constant action, long hours, minimal sleep, and an unbroken cycle of productivity. But true focus is not about working endlessly, it is about working intelligently. The mind is not an engine that can run indefinitely. It is a system that requires balance, alternating between intense concentration and deliberate recovery. Those who sustain deep focus do not just push harder, they learn to step back, understanding that rest and reflection are not distractions from productivity, but essential components of it. Aristotle saw that contemplation was the highest form of human activity. He believed that deep thinking, rather than constant motion, led to true wisdom. To him, great ideas were not born from endless effort, but from moments of stillness, where the mind could process, synthesize, and refine knowledge. His philosophy was not about laziness, but about intentional rest, pausing not to escape work, but to improve it. Modern science confirms this. Studies show that the brain does not consolidate learning while actively working. It does so during rest, particularly during sleep and moments of quiet reflection. One of the most overlooked tools for focus is strategic disengagement, the ability to step away from work in a way that enhances performance rather than diminishes it. Leonardo da Vinci, known for his boundless creativity, would frequently leave his paintings unfinished for days or even weeks, returning with fresh eyes and new insights. He understood that mental breakthroughs often happen not during effort, but during rest, when the subconscious mind is given space to connect ideas in ways that conscious effort alone cannot achieve. Modern neuroscience supports this idea through the default mode network, DMN, a system in the brain that becomes active during rest, responsible for creativity, problem-solving, and long-term thinking. When a person disengages from focused work, whether through a walk, meditation, or simple reflection, the brain does not shut off. Instead, it enters a mode where connections between ideas strengthen, insights emerge, and solutions become clearer. This is why some of the best ideas come not while working, but while doing something entirely unrelated, a phenomenon experienced by thinkers, artists, and scientists throughout history. Reflection, like rest, is an essential part of sustained focus. Seneca, the Roman philosopher, practiced daily self-examination, believing that progress is not just about action, but about understanding one's actions. He would review his decisions, thoughts, and behaviors, ensuring that each day aligned with his long-term goals. This habit of deliberate reflection helps sharpen focus by filtering out distractions, reinforcing priorities, and ensuring that effort is directed toward meaningful progress rather than reactive busyness. However, not all rest is equal. Mindless distraction, such as passive scrolling through social media or binge-watching content, does not restore focus. It depletes it further. The key is intentional rest, choosing activities that genuinely recharge the mind, such as nature walks, reading, deep breathing exercises, or unstructured moments of silence. Nikola Tesla, one of history's most brilliant inventors, often took long walks alone, using that time not to escape thought, but to allow his ideas to develop organically. His insights did not come from forcing focus, but from allowing space for it to emerge naturally. The balance between effort and recovery applies to everything: physical training, intellectual work, creative pursuits. Athletes do not improve by training relentlessly. They improve by alternating intensity with recovery. The same is true for the mind. A person who works without pause may feel productive, but over time their efficiency declines, their creativity fades, and their ability to maintain deep focus diminishes. Those who embrace rest not as an afterthought, but as a deliberate tool for peak performance are the ones who sustain focus in the long run. Aristotle saw that contemplation leads to wisdom. Leonardo da Vinci demonstrated that breakthroughs happen during rest. Seneca proved that reflection refines focus. Tesla used disengagement as a tool for creative insight. Their lesson is clear: rest is not the opposite of productivity, it is its foundation. The mind, like any finely tuned instrument, requires both tension and release. Those who master this balance do not burn out. They build a sustainable rhythm where focus remains sharp, creativity flourishes, and progress becomes a continuous, intentional process. Develop mental toughness to stay committed. Focus is easy when motivation is high, when enthusiasm is fresh, when goals feel exciting, when the path ahead is clear. Staying disciplined comes naturally, but true commitment is tested in the moments when energy fades, when distractions creep in, when progress feels slow. Mental toughness is not about force, it is about endurance. It is the ability to continue despite resistance, to remain steady when obstacles arise, to commit to focus even when the mind seeks an easier path. Those who sustain deep concentration over the long run do not rely on fleeting inspiration. They cultivate resilience, discipline, and an unshakable sense of purpose. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, understood this deeply. He believed that the difference between those who succeed and those who do not is not talent or luck, but the ability to persist when things become difficult. He saw that most people abandon their focus not because they are incapable, but because they allow discomfort to dictate their actions. His approach was simple but powerful. Train the mind to withstand discomfort rather than avoid it. To him, developing mental toughness was not about suppressing emotions or ignoring struggle. It was about accepting that challenges are part of the process and choosing to move forward regardless. This principle is reinforced by modern psychology. Studies on grit, a term popularized by researcher Angela Duckworth, show that success is not about intensity, it is about consistency. Those who achieve mastery in any field are not the ones who work the hardest in short bursts, but the ones who show up day after day, even when conditions are not ideal. Writers write when they do not feel inspired. Athletes train when they do not feel strong. Innovators push forward when progress seems invisible. The key is not to wait for perfect conditions, but to develop the mental strength to work through imperfection. One of the greatest challenges to long-term focus is emotional reactivity, allowing frustration, boredom, or self-doubt to interrupt momentum. The mind, if left unchecked, will seek the path of least resistance, finding reasons to delay, to shift focus, to escape discomfort. The solution is training the mind to detach from short-term emotions and remain anchored in long-term commitment. Viktor Frankl, the psychologist and Holocaust survivor, wrote extensively about this idea, arguing that when a person connects deeply with their purpose, they can endure any temporary difficulty. His insight was not about ignoring hardship, but about shifting perspective, understanding that the struggle of the moment is insignificant compared to the greater goal. Mental toughness is not an innate trait. It's something that's built through deliberate action. One way to cultivate it is through small acts of discipline in daily life. Choosing to wake up early, even when it is uncomfortable, completing a task before checking notifications, sticking to commitments even when motivation wavers. These seemingly minor decisions create a foundation of resilience, training the mind to prioritize commitment over fleeting emotion. Over time, these habits form an identity, not just someone who focuses, but someone who does not quit. Another strategy is visualizing long-term rewards rather than short-term struggles. When the brain fixates on difficulty, tasks feel heavier. But when the mind focuses on what will be gained, the knowledge, the skill, the progress, the challenge becomes more bearable. This technique is used by elite athletes, Navy SEALs, and high performers in every field. They do not dwell on exhaustion. They focus on the outcome. They do not indulge in the thought of quitting. They remind themselves why they started. Ultimately, focus is not just about avoiding distractions. It is about enduring the discomfort that comes with sustained effort. Epictetus saw that resilience determines success more than talent. Angela Duckworth proved that consistency outperforms intensity. Viktor Frankl revealed that purpose strengthens endurance. Their lesson is clear. Mental toughness is the foundation of lasting focus. Those who develop the discipline to continue when it is difficult, the clarity to detach from momentary frustration, and the perspective to see beyond temporary setbacks, do not just maintain focus, they master it. In a world where most people quit when things become difficult, those who persist, who train their minds to stay steady, who commit fully to their goals, will always stand apart. Learn to say no and set boundaries. Focus is not just about what one chooses to do, it is just as much about what one refuses to do. The ability to concentrate deeply on meaningful work is not merely a function of willpower or motivation, but of guarding one's time and energy against unnecessary commitments. Many people struggle with focus, not because they lack discipline, but because they are constantly pulled in multiple directions by obligations that do not align with their priorities. Every unnecessary yes is a silent no to something that truly matters. Those who master focus do not just control their attention. They control their environment by setting firm boundaries and learning to decline distractions, obligations, and requests that dilute their efforts. This principle has been understood for centuries. Socrates, one of history's greatest thinkers, believed that wisdom begins with self-awareness, knowing one's limitations and acting accordingly. He observed that many people spread themselves too thin, engaging in endless pursuits without questioning whether they truly align with their purpose. To him, saying no was not about selfishness, it was about clarity. He understood that time and energy are finite, and that to focus deeply on what matters, one must first eliminate what does not. In modern psychology, this concept is reinforced by the idea of decision fatigue. Studies show that the brain has a limited capacity for making decisions each day. The more choices a person makes, whether responding to emails, attending unnecessary meetings, or accommodating obligations, the more mental energy is depleted. By the time they sit down to engage in meaningful work, their ability to focus has already been compromised. This is why the most effective individuals protect their time fiercely, reserving mental energy for what truly moves them forward. One of the most powerful frameworks for setting boundaries is Greg McKeown's concept of essentialism, the practice of focusing only on the few things that produce the greatest results and eliminating everything else. He argues that success is not about doing more, but about doing less, better. Those who apply this philosophy do not allow themselves to be overwhelmed by external demands. They evaluate each request, each commitment, and each distraction with one critical question: does this align with my highest priorities? If the answer is no, they decline without guilt, understanding that every misallocated effort is a lost opportunity for something greater. However, setting boundaries is not just about declining external requests. It is also about establishing rules for oneself. Many distractions are self-inflicted: checking messages impulsively, engaging in conversations that offer little value, overcommitting to obligations out of habit rather than necessity. The most focused individuals establish personal guidelines, time blocks for deep work, designated periods for communication, and clear rules for what deserves their attention and what does not. They do not let external pressures dictate their schedule. They design their days intentionally. One of the greatest challenges in saying no is the fear of disappointing others. Many hesitate to set boundaries because they worry about how they will be perceived, concerned that declining requests might make them seem unhelpful, unkind, or difficult. But Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors in history, famously said, "The difference between successful people and very successful people is that very successful people say no to almost everything. This is not about arrogance, it is about focus." He understood that attention is a finite resource, and that true mastery requires prioritizing only the highest value opportunities. Socrates saw that wisdom begins with knowing what to ignore. Decision fatigue research proves that every unnecessary choice weakens focus. Greg McKeown's essentialism teaches that success is about doing less, but better. Buffett's philosophy reminds us that saying no is not rejection. It is strategic clarity. Their lesson is clear. To focus deeply, one must protect their time relentlessly. Those who master this skill do not allow distractions, obligations, or the expectations of others to pull them away from their goals. They understand that the ability to say no is not a limitation. It is a powerful tool for directing energy toward what truly matters. Align your daily actions with your bigger vision. Focus is not just about isolated moments of deep work. It is about consistency. Many people set ambitious goals, yet their daily actions do not reflect those aspirations. They want to build a business, but spend most of their time on low-priority tasks. They want to master a skill, but allow distractions to consume their schedule. The disconnect between what they desire and how they spend their time is what keeps them stagnant. Those who achieve meaningful success do not just work hard occasionally. They align their daily habits with their long-term vision, ensuring that every action moves them closer to their ultimate goal. This principle has been central to many philosophical traditions. Aristotle believed that excellence was not a singular act, but a habit, famously stating, "We are what we repeatedly do." He saw that true mastery was not achieved through grand gestures or momentary bursts of effort, but through daily, disciplined action. To him, success was not about ambition alone. It was about creating routines that made progress inevitable. A person who wants to be a writer must write every day. A person who wants to be an athlete must train consistently. Vision without aligned action is nothing more than a wish. Modern behavioral psychology reinforces this idea. James Clear, in Atomic Habits, explains that people do not rise to the level of their goals. They fall to the level of their systems. Wishing to be productive does not create productivity. Structuring daily routines for focus does. Those who sustain deep concentration do not just hope for the right conditions. They build environments, habits, and mindsets that make focus automatic. Their lives are designed in a way that ensures that every small action compounds into something significant over time. One of the most effective ways to align daily actions with long-term goals is habit tracking, a method used by some of the world's most disciplined individuals. Benjamin Franklin, for example, meticulously tracked his daily virtues, holding himself accountable for whether he lived according to his ideals. His success was not the result of sudden bursts of motivation, but of a carefully structured system that ensured he remained aligned with his principles. This approach remains just as powerful today. Keeping a daily journal, tracking progress, and setting clear intentions helps maintain focus and ensures that small efforts accumulate into major achievements. Another key practice is setting non-negotiable priorities each day. Many people begin their mornings by reacting, checking messages, responding to urgent but unimportant tasks, allowing their day to be dictated by external demands. Those who maintain focus, however, start with intention. They identify one or two critical actions that will drive the most progress and structure their day around those. By consistently prioritizing high-impact tasks, they ensure that each day brings them closer to their long-term vision. Equally important is regular self-reflection, a practice used by many of history's greatest thinkers. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, would review his actions, ensuring that they aligned with his principles and goals. This practice is a safeguard against distraction. It allows one to assess whether their time is being spent wisely or whether they are drifting off course. A simple daily reflection, asking, "Did my actions today reflect my long-term goals?" can serve as a powerful guide for maintaining focus. Ultimately, sustained focus is not about working harder for short periods. It is about structuring life in a way that makes focus a natural byproduct of daily habits. Aristotle saw that excellence is built through repeated action. James Clear proved that systems dictate success more than goals do. Benjamin Franklin demonstrated that tracking progress keeps one accountable. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that self-reflection ensures alignment with purpose. Their lesson is clear. True focus is not occasional, it is embedded in daily life. Those who master it do not wait for inspiration or ideal conditions. They ensure that every day, in small, deliberate ways, they are moving in the direction of their vision, until that vision becomes reality. Make focus a core. Part of your identity. Focus is not just a skill, it is an identity. Many people approach concentration as something they need to improve, a technique they must master, or a habit they should build. But the deepest, most lasting form of focus does not come from external strategies alone. It comes from seeing oneself as a focused person, as someone who naturally directs attention with intention, who does not allow distractions to dictate their actions, and who moves through life with clarity and purpose. Those who master focus do not just practice it, they embody it. This idea is not new. Søren Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher, wrote about the power of self-perception, arguing that a person becomes what they consistently believe themselves to be. If someone sees themselves as undisciplined, they will act in ways that reinforce that identity. If they view themselves as someone who struggles with distraction, their mind will look for evidence to confirm that belief. But when a person commits to the idea that they are focused, disciplined, and intentional, their actions begin to align with that identity, not out of force, but out of natural habit. Modern behavioral science supports this. James Clear, in Atomic Habits, explains that true behavior change happens when identity shifts. Instead of saying, "I need to focus more," a person should say, "I am someone who values deep focus." This small linguistic change rewires the way the brain processes effort. Instead of forcing discipline, it creates an internal expectation, one that makes focused action feel natural rather than forced. Throughout history, the most disciplined individuals operated from a place of deep identity alignment. Bruce Lee, for example, did not just practice martial arts, he lived it, embodying its philosophy in every aspect of his life. To him, discipline was not something separate from who he was. It was ingrained in his character. This is the level of commitment required to sustain lifelong focus, not just adopting strategies, but seeing oneself as someone who moves through the world with clarity and intention. But how does one internalize focus as part of their identity? One method is reinforcing small wins daily. Every time a person successfully engages in deep work, resists a distraction, or completes a task with full attention, they strengthen their belief in themselves as a focused individual. Over time, these small moments accumulate, building undeniable proof that focus is not something they are trying to achieve, it is who they are. Another method is eliminating language that weakens identity, saying, "I'm just bad at focusing," or "I get distracted easily," reinforces a self-image of weakness. Instead, adopting statements like, "I am someone who values concentration," or "I protect my attention because it is valuable," reshapes the way the mind approaches focus. It creates an internal expectation that makes it easier to act in alignment with the goal. A powerful final step is structuring life in a way that reflects this identity. Focused people do not leave their attention to chance. They design environments that eliminate unnecessary distractions, build routines that prioritize deep work, and surround themselves with others who value the same principles. They do not just practice focus in isolated moments. They build a world where focus is the default. Kierkegaard saw that self-perception shapes reality. James Clear demonstrated that identity dictates behavior. Bruce Lee proved that discipline is most powerful when it is a way of being, not just an effort. Their lesson is clear. To sustain deep focus, one must not just practice it, but embody it. Those who integrate focus into their identity do not struggle to concentrate. They act in alignment with who they have chosen to become. In a world filled with distraction, the ability to define oneself as someone who moves with purpose is not just an advantage, it is a transformation. The power of focus, a lifelong commitment. Focus is more than a skill, it is a way of living. It is the quiet discipline of directing attention toward what truly matters while letting go of everything that does not. In a world that constantly pulls in 1,000 directions, where distractions compete endlessly for mental space, the ability to concentrate is not just useful, it is essential. Those who master it do not merely work harder, they work with greater precision, depth, and clarity. History has shown that the greatest minds, the most accomplished individuals, were not those who simply had talent, but those who knew where to place their attention. Aristotle understood that excellence is built through repeated actions. Seneca knew that clarity requires eliminating the unnecessary. Kierkegaard saw that identity shapes behavior. Their wisdom remains as relevant today as it was in their time. The mind is a tool, and those who learn to wield it with intention will always rise above those who let it be scattered by distractions. Focus is not about working harder for short bursts. It is about crafting a life where deep concentration is the default state. It's about designing environments that nurture undivided attention, setting boundaries that protect energy, and aligning daily actions with long-term aspirations. It's about learning to say no, not just to external noise, but to the internal habits of procrastination, self-doubt, and mental fragmentation. True mastery of focus is not found in momentary discipline, but in the transformation of identity. It is in becoming someone for whom presence, clarity, and deep engagement are second nature. The world will always be filled with distractions, but in the end, the ability to control one's attention, the rare skill of choosing where to place it and for how long, determines the trajectory of success, fulfillment, and purpose. The question is not whether focus is important. The question is whether it will be claimed as a lifelong commitment. Those who embrace it fully will find that their greatest achievements are not the result of chance, but of deliberate, unwavering intention.